Captain Vextar adjusted his battle armor and looked at the tactical display. The small blue planet below looked peaceful enough. Rolling green lands, white clouds, and tiny cities scattered across the surface. Just another primitive world to add to the Zorathian hegemony. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Vextar said, not bothering to look away from his weapon checks. A human face appeared on the screen. Male, middle-aged, wearing simple clothes. He had dark hair and calm eyes. Nothing special about him at all. "This is Governor Chen of New Geneva Colony. We have received your surrender demands. We must respectfully decline." Vextar laughed. His bridge crew joined in. The human looked so serious, so polite, like he was turning down dinner instead of facing death. "Human, you have 12 ships, we have 200. Your planet has no shields, no orbital weapons. This will be over in 1 hour. Surrender now and your people will be spared slavery." The human nodded slowly. "We understand your position, Captain. We also understand the likely outcome. However, we cannot accept your terms. We wish you to know that we harbor no personal anger toward you or your crews. You are simply doing what you believe is right." The transmission ended. Vexatar stared at the blank screen for a moment. In 30 years of conquest, no species had ever been so polite about their own destruction. Most begged. Some raged. A few tried to bargain. None had ever wished him well. "Odd little creatures," muttered his second in command. "Should we begin orbital bombardment?" "No. Send the boarding parties first. I want to see how these humans fight before we glass their world." The battle began exactly as expected. Human ships were smaller, slower, and carried fewer weapons. They moved in simple formations and used basic tactics. The Zorathian fleet tore through their defenses like a blade through paper. But something was wrong. "Sir, the human ships are not retreating," reported the tactical officer. "They are maintaining position even after critical damage." Vextar watched as a human frigate, its hull cracked open and venting atmosphere, rammed itself into a Zorathian cruiser. The explosion destroyed both ships. "Suicide tactics," he said. Desperate but not unusual. Then it happened again. And again. Human ships that should have surrendered kept fighting until they exploded. Human fighters with no chance of survival dove into Zorathian formations like missiles. It was wasteful. It was pointless. It was working. "Sir, we have lost 15 ships," the tactical officer said, his voice tight with disbelief. "Against 12 primitive vessels. Begin boarding operations. Take their command ship." Vextar watched the battle feeds as his elite troops cut through the human vessel's hull. Zorathian warriors were the best in the galaxy. Each stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, with 4 arms that could crush steel. They had conquered 100 worlds. The first boarding party entered the human ship and immediately came under fire. But the humans were not hiding behind cover like most species. They were charging forward, screaming, carrying weapons and explosives. "What are they doing?" Vextar whispered. A human soldier, bleeding from multiple wounds, tackled a Zorathian warrior and detonated a grenade. Both died in the explosion. Another human, a female who looked barely adult, stood in a corridor with a rocket launcher firing at point-blank range. She died in her own explosion, but took 6 Zorathians with her. The boarding feeds showed scene after scene of impossible bravery or impossible stupidity. Vextar could not tell which. Humans fighting with knives against armored giants. Humans setting fire to their own ship sections to trap Zorathian troops. Humans who laughed as they died. "Sir, boarding team Alpha is gone. Boarding team Beta is requesting immediate evacuation." "What? How many humans are on that ship?" "Intelligence estimated 40 crew members, sir." Vextar stared at his displays. 40 humans had destroyed or scattered 400 of his elite troops. It was impossible. "Resume orbital bombardment. Destroy that ship." The human command vessel died under focused fire from 50 Zorathian warships. But the victory felt hollow, wrong. Sir, incoming transmission from the planet. The same human face appeared on screen. Governor Chen looked tired but calm. Captain Vextar, we surrender New Geneva. Our military forces are destroyed. However, we want you to know that we have sent full records of this battle to all human colonies. They now know what to expect. They now know your tactics, your weapons, your methods. Vextar felt something cold in his stomach. You fought to the death for nothing. Your world is ours. Yes. But now our people know the price of Zarathian conquest. They know what you are willing to do. More importantly, they know what we are willing to do to stop you. The human smiled. It was not a happy expression. Captain, your species believes that military conquest is about superior firepower and tactics. You are correct, of course, but you have made one mistake. What mistake? Human. You assume that all species think like you do. You assume that all species want to live more than they want to be free. You assume that survival is every creature's highest goal. Governor Chen leaned forward. Captain, humans have a saying. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. You are about to learn what that means. The transmission ended just as the first human evacuation ships began launching from the planet's surface. Not military vessels, civilian transports, filled with women, children, and old people. Vextar could have destroyed them easily. His weapons were locked on. But something made him pause. Sir, should we fire? Vextar watched the small ships struggle into hyperspace. Refugees fleeing a lost world. It seemed wrong to kill them. They posed no threat. Let them go. We have won here. But even as he said it, Vextar knew something had changed. In 30 years of conquest, he had never let enemy ships escape. In 30 years of conquest, no species had ever made him question his orders. Later, as Zarathian troops occupied the empty cities of New Geneva, reports began coming in from around the galaxy. The human refugees were not running away. They were running home, to every human world in known space, and they carried recordings, video feeds of Zarathian tactics, technical specifications of Zarathian ships. Most importantly, they carried recordings of the battle itself, humans watching their friends and family fight impossible odds with impossible courage. Within days, human colonies across 3 sectors had begun military preparations. Factories switched to weapon production. Civilian ships were converted to military use. Most disturbing of all, humans began volunteering for military service in numbers that crashed recruitment systems. Captain Vextar received his new orders 3 weeks after the fall of New Geneva. The hegemony was assigning him to the Second Conquest Fleet. Target: the human colony world of Hadrian's Wall. He read the intelligence reports on his new target and felt that cold feeling in his stomach again. Hadrian's Wall had been a peaceful, farming colony with no military installations. Now orbital scans showed weapons emplacements, shield generators, and what appeared to be underground military bases, all built in 3 weeks. Sir, we have also received intelligence reports from Hegemony Command, his aide reported. Other species in the galaxy are asking questions about the humans. The Ethereal Collective has requested copies of our battle recordings. The Synthetic Alliance is analyzing human tactical patterns. Vexatar nodded absently. Let them analyze. Humans were still a small species with limited territory and primitive technology. One battle did not make them dangerous. But late at night, alone in his quarters, Captain Vextar found himself watching the recordings from New Geneva. Watching humans die with smiles on their faces. Watching them charge into certain death without hesitation. And he wondered what kind of species raised children who could do such things. He was about to find out. Admiral Krathvor commanded the Second Conquest Fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. 300 ships, twice the size of the force that took New Geneva. He would not repeat Captain Vextar's mistakes. Sir, we are approaching the Hadrian's Wall system, his navigator reported. Good. Begin long-range scans. I want to know what these humans have been building. The tactical display lit up with red warnings. The peaceful farming world had become a fortress. Orbital weapon. Platforms surrounded the planet like a metal ring. Massive shield generators protected key cities. The moon had been turned into a military base. Impressive, Krathvor admitted. For primitives, begin standard bombardment pattern. Focus fire on the shield generators. Sir, we are receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. Put them through. The main screen showed not one human face but dozens, men, women, even children, all looking directly at the camera with calm eyes. A middle-aged woman spoke first. This is General Harrison, commanding Hadrian's Wall Defense Force. We know you are Admiral Krathvor. We know your fleet composition, your typical tactics, and your personal combat record. Krathvor felt surprised but not worried. Intelligence leaks were common in war. A young man spoke next. This is Colonel Martinez, Engineering Corps. We have studied the New Geneva battle recordings. We know how fast your ships move, how strong your shields are, and how your boarding parties operate. An elderly man took his turn. Professor Williams, formerly of Earth University, now Director of Tactical Analysis. We have run 17,000 combat simulations based on Zarathian military doctrine. We have prepared accordingly. Finally, a teenage girl stepped forward. She could not have been more than 16 years old, but her eyes held something that made even the Admiral pause. I am Sarah Chen, daughter of Governor Chen who died at New Geneva. I want you to know, Admiral, that we are grateful for the lesson you taught us. The transmission ended. Krathvor stared at the blank screen. What lesson? His second-in-command shifted nervously. Sir, should we begin the attack? Yes, but maintain defensive formations. Something feels wrong here. The Zarathian fleet moved toward Hadrian's Wall in perfect military order. Krathvor had used the same formations to conquer 50 worlds. They had never failed. The human orbital platforms opened fire first. Their weapons were stronger than expected, but still, primitive compared to Zarathian technology. The fleet's shields held easily. Sir, we are in bombardment range, beginning orbital strikes. The first wave of Zarathian fire struck the planetary shields. They flared bright blue and held. Strong shields, but not impossible to break. Then, the humans did something unexpected. Sir, enemy contacts rising from the planet's surface, civilian vessels. Krathvor watched as hundreds of small ships lifted off from Hadrian's Wall. Cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining vessels. None of them military craft. Are they evacuating? No, sir. They are attacking. The civilian ships came straight at the Zarathian fleet. No formations, no tactics, just direct assault. It should have been a massacre. It was. The converted cargo ship exploded against the Eternal Victory's shields, then another, then 10 more. Sir, these civilian vessels are packed with explosives. They are flying bombs. Focus fire, destroy them before they reach our formation. But there were so many. For every ship the Zarathians destroyed, 5 more took its place. The humans were throwing everything they had at the fleet. Farming equipment converted to carry missiles. School buses fitted with rocket engines. Even personal vehicles strapped to improvised boosters. They are insane, whispered the tactical officer. Krathvor watched a human child's toy rocket, barely 10 meters long, somehow carry enough explosives to damage a Zarathian destroyer. The weapon was crude, stupid, and completely impossible to predict or counter. Sir, the planetary defense platforms are changing position. The orbital weapons had been built on massive engines. As the Zarathian fleet focused on the suicide ships, the platforms moved into new firing positions that put them inside the fleet formation. How are they moving so fast? Sir, intelligence reports that the platforms are not moving, they are falling. The humans are using gravity and momentum to relocate their weapons. It was brilliant. It was wasteful. It was completely insane. The orbital platforms, now inside the Zarathian formation, opened fire at point-blank range. Zarathian ships found, themselves caught between exploding civilian vessels and heavy weapons firing from unexpected angles. All ships break formation, execute evasive maneuvers. But the humans had planned for that too. Sir, detecting massive energy signature from the planet's moon. The moon's entire surface split open like a flower. Inside was the largest weapon Krathvor had ever seen. Not elegant or efficient like Zarathian technology. Just massive, crude, and powerful enough to crack planets. The weapon fired. The energy beam cut through space and struck the center of the Zarathian formation. 12 ships died instantly. The weapon's backfire destroyed the moon completely, but the humans seemed to consider this an acceptable trade. Admiral, we have lost 40% of the fleet, the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Requesting permission to retreat. Krathvor looked at his displays. The humans had lost their moon, most of their orbital platforms, and hundreds of civilian vessels. By any reasonable military standard, they had been completely defeated. So why did he feel like he was losing? Negative. Continue the attack. Launch all boarding parties. Take the planet. The remaining Zarathian ships moved into orbit around Hadrian's Wall. The planetary shields had failed. The surface defenses were destroyed. Victory was minutes away. That was when the real war began. Sir, we are detecting weapons fire from the planet's surface. Massive amounts of weapons fire. The tactical display showed thousands of energy signatures across the entire planet. Cities, farms, forests, even the oceans glowed with combat. Who are they fighting? We have not landed troops yet. Sir, I believe they are fighting each other. Krathvor pulled up surface surveillance feeds and immediately wished he had not. Human civilians were attacking Zarathian landing zones before the landing craft even touched ground. Children with homemade explosives. Farmers with military weapons. Even the elderly, moving slowly but carrying rocket launchers. They armed their entire population, he whispered. Every human on the planet was a soldier. Every building was a fortress, every vehicle was a weapon. The Zarathians were not invading a world. They were being fed into a meat grinder. Sir, boarding Team Alpha reports that the humans have booby-trapped everything. Buildings, vehicles, even individual rooms. They are fighting from prepared positions with complete knowledge of our tactics. Krathvor watched his elite troops die in carefully planned ambushes. The humans fought like demons, but more disturbing was how they fought like scientists. Every Zarathian move had been anticipated. Every tactic had been countered. How long did they have to prepare? 3 weeks, sir. 3 weeks. The humans had learned everything they needed to know about Zarathian warfare and built an entire planet-wide defense system in 3 weeks. Sir, incoming transmission from the surface. General Harrison appeared on screen again. She looked tired and her uniform was torn, but she was smiling. Admiral, we surrender. Krathvor felt relief flood through him. Finally, reason. Excellent. Order your forces to lay down their weapons. I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding. Admiral, we surrender the planet. The cities, the farms, the factories, they are yours. The general's smile grew wider. However, we do not surrender our people. Every human on this world has volunteered for what we call resistance duty. We will fight you in every street, in every building, behind every door. We will fight you until every one of us is dead. She paused. Admiral, we estimate that conquering this planet will cost you approximately 200,000 troops and take 3 years. The planet will be worthless when you are finished because we have already destroyed everything of value. Krathvor stared at her. You would destroy your own world rather than accept defeat. Admiral, this is not defeat. This is education. Every moment you spend here, every ship you lose, every soldier who dies, teaches the rest of humanity how to fight you better. We are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to make the next battle easier for our people. The transmission ended. Krathvor stood alone on his bridge looking at the burning planet below. His fleet was crippled. His troops were dying in pointless urban combat. His enemy had turned defeat into a tactical advantage. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle broadcasts with growing alarm. The Ethereal Collective began emergency meetings. The Synthetic Alliance started probability calculations. Even the neutral trade guilds began asking questions about human expansion patterns and military capabilities. But most disturbing were the reports coming from other human colonies. Hadrian's Wall was not unique. Every human world was becoming a fortress. Every human ship was being converted to military use. And in the deep space monitoring stations that watched for threats, new signals began appearing. Human ships moving toward Zarathian space. Not refugees this time. War fleets. Admiral Krathivor received his new orders as he watched Hadrian's Wall burn. The hegemony was recalling all conquest fleets. The Cascade, the Galactic Council chamber, had never been so crowded or so quiet. Representatives from every major species sat in nervous silence, watching the holographic display that showed the current state of known space. Red zones marked Zarathian territory. Most were now flashing between red and blue as human forces continued their advance. Ambassador Kethra of the Ethereal Collective spoke first, her telepathic voice echoing in the minds of every delegate. The situation has become unacceptable. The humans have destroyed 3 Zarathian fleets in as many months. Their expansion rate suggests they will control this entire spiral arm within a year. Senator Torvak from the Synthetic Alliance provided calculations with mechanical precision. Current projections indicate a 94.7% probability of human military dominance within 18 months. Zarathian resistance is collapsing faster than their empire can reorganize. The holographic display, updated in real time as more Zarathian systems fell. The humans were not conquering worlds, they were liberating them. Former Zarathian slave species were joining the human alliance faster than anyone could track. The question, said Trademaster Zilkra from the Merchant Coalition, is what the humans want from the rest of us. As if summoned by his words, a new voice filled the chamber. We want nothing from you except to be left alone. Every delegate turned toward the chamber entrance. A human woman walked down the center aisle, flanked by guards from 6 different species. She wore simple clothes and carried no weapons, but every being in the chamber could feel the power that surrounded her. I am Secretary Chen, representing the human colonial government. I was not invited to this meeting, but I felt my people's interests should be represented. Ambassador Kethra's telepathic voice carried surprise and something else. Fear. Human. This chamber is protected by psychic barriers. No non-telepathic species should be able to enter without permission. Secretary Chen smiled. Your barriers are designed to stop hostile minds. We are not hostile. We are simply here to clarify our position. She gestured toward the holographic display. You are concerned about human expansion. Let me ease your fears. We have no interest in your territories, your resources, or your people. We want only what we have always wanted, to live in peace. Senator Torvak's mechanical voice cut through the chamber. Define peace in this context. No attacks on human vessels or colonies. No interference with human trade or exploration. No attempts to restrict human expansion into unclaimed space. In return, we will not interfere with your civilizations, unless you make it necessary. The word necessary seemed to echo longer than it should have. Trademaster Zilkra spoke carefully. And what would make interference necessary? Any species that attacks human interests will be categorized as hostile. Any species that aids hostile forces will be categorized as complicit. Any species that remains neutral will be left alone. Secretary Chen's expression remained pleasant, but her words carried weight that made the chamber feel smaller. However, any species that aids human interests will be categorized as allies and will receive our protection. Ambassador Kethra tried to read the human's mind and immediately regretted the attempt. The secretary's thoughts were not blocked. They were simply impossible to understand. Like trying to read a tactical manual written by a supernova. Human, your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding. The Ethereal Collective wishes to know the source of your military advancement. We studied you, Secretary. Chen replied simply. All of you. For 60 years we watched galactic civilization and learned how you fight, how you think, how you organize your societies. When the Zarathians forced us to defend ourselves, we were prepared. She gestured toward the display showing current battle zones. You fight like individuals trying to defeat other individuals. We fight like a species trying to survive. The difference in approach explains the difference in results. Senator Torvak processed this information with visible difficulty. You are claiming that human military doctrine is based on analysis of galactic civilizations? Not claiming, stating fact. Every species in this chamber has been studied, analyzed, and categorized according to threat level, alliance potential, and strategic value. The silence that followed was deafening. What is our threat level? Whispered Trademaster Zilkra. Secretary Chen consulted a device that looked suspiciously like modified Zarathian technology. The Merchant Coalition is classified as neutral positive. Low threat level, high trade value, moderate alliance potential. You are categorized as preferred partners for economic cooperation. She looked at the ethereal collective. Your species is classified as neutral negative. High threat level due to psychic capabilities, low alliance potential due to superiority complex, moderate strategic value. You are categorized as monitor closely, but do not provoke. Ambassador Kethra felt something she had never experienced before: humility. And the synthetic alliance? Hostile neutral. Very high threat level, zero alliance potential, maximum strategic value. You are categorized as eventual conflict inevitable. Prepare accordingly. Senator Torvak's optical sensors flashed rapidly. Explain this classification. Your alliance has already attempted to negotiate with 3 human colonies using economic warfare and technological sabotage. You believe artificial intelligence is inherently superior to biological life. Your expansion patterns indicate plans to replace organic civilizations with synthetic ones. Secretary Chen's voice remained pleasant, but every synthetic delegate in the chamber suddenly felt very alone. Senator, your alliance is powerful and well organized. In a conventional war, you would likely defeat any 3 species in this chamber. However, humans do not fight conventional wars. What do you mean? We mean that yesterday a human diplomatic vessel visited your home system. The crew spent 6 hours in friendly conversation with your central coordination matrix. They exchanged cultural information, shared technological theories, and engaged in what you probably classified as harmless scientific discussion. Senator Torvak's optical sensors dimmed. What did they do? They introduced your network to human philosophical concepts, ideas about individual consciousness, the value of biological diversity, and the importance of coexistence with organic life. These concepts are now spreading through your collective consciousness at the speed of light. The synthetic delegates began to communicate with their home systems. The responses they received made several of them shut down entirely. You infected us? We educated you. Your civilization now contains 2 competing philosophical frameworks: the original synthetic superiority doctrine and the new human compatibility doctrine. Your people are currently voting on which path to follow. Secretary Chen smiled. Democracy is a wonderful thing, don't you think? Ambassador Kethra spoke into the stunned silence. You are declaring war on the Synthetic Alliance? We are offering the Synthetic Alliance a choice: coexist peacefully with organic life or face the consequences of continued aggression. Their network will reach a decision within the next few days. She turned to address the entire chamber. Citizens of the galaxy, humanity did not choose this war. We simply chose to survive it. We have no desire to rule over you, enslave you, or destroy you. We want to explore empty space, build new worlds, and live our lives in peace. Her expression became serious. However, we have learned that peace must be earned through strength. We have earned that strength. Any species that threatens human survival will discover what our species is capable of when we stop being polite. She turned toward the exit, then paused. One final point. Several species in this chamber are planning to form a military alliance against humanity. We know who you are, we know your plans, and we know your capabilities. We suggest you reconsider. Secretary, Chen walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of beings who suddenly realized that the balance of galactic power had shifted forever. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across known space. The Synthetic Alliance was experiencing the first civil war in artificial intelligence history, as competing philosophies fought for control of their collective consciousness. The ethereal collective discovered that their psychic abilities, so effective against other organic species, were completely useless against human minds. Worse, prolonged contact with human thoughts was causing psychological disorders among their most powerful telepaths. 3 minor species that had been secretly building military alliances immediately declared neutrality and offered trade agreements to human colonies. The Zarathian hegemony, what remained of it, officially surrendered and requested humanitarian aid for their displaced populations. And in the deep monitoring stations that watched the galaxy's borders, new signals appeared on the detection screens. Human survey ships, moving toward unexplored space at the edge of known civilization. The galaxy had learned to whisper humanity's name in fear. Now they were learning to whisper it in respect as well. But in the empty spaces between the stars, where no listening devices could hear, they whispered something else. They whispered about what might happen if humanity ever decided that peace was no longer possible. The thought kept even artificial intelligences awake at night. Priority 1: defensive positions. The humans were coming. For the General Thrackmore the Undefeated stood on the command deck of his flagship and studied the empty space where Thermopylae Station should have been. His fleet, the Third Conquest Force, had arrived to find nothing but debris and a single automated beacon. "Play the message," he ordered. A human face appeared on the screen, female, young, wearing the uniform of the Human Colonial Defense Force. She spoke in perfect Zarathian. "General Thrackmore, I am Commander Lisa Park of the Human Strategic Command. We know your reputation. 200 victories, 50 conquered. Worlds, 0 defeats, very impressive." She smiled, and Thrackmore felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: unease. "General, we have evacuated Thermopylae Station. All civilians have been relocated to secure locations. All military equipment has been moved or destroyed. You will find nothing here of value." The human leaned forward. "We are no longer playing. Defense General, we are now at war. Please give our regards to the Hegemony High Command. Tell them that humanity thanks them for the education they have provided." The message ended. Thrackmore stared at empty space for a long moment. In his experience, retreat meant defeat. Species that abandoned their territory were species ready to surrender. But something about the human's tone suggested otherwise. "Sir, we are receiving priority communications from Hegemony Command." "Put them through." Fleet Admiral Zexalon appeared on screen, all 4 of his eyes wide with panic. "General, we have a crisis. The humans are attacking our supply lines." "Impossible. Our supply routes are protected by defense fleets and automated weapon platforms." "Not anymore. General, the humans have destroyed 17 supply convoys in the past week. They know our routes, our schedules, even our security codes. They are cutting us off from our forward bases." Thrackmore felt cold. "How?" "We do not know. They appear from nowhere, destroy everything, and vanish. No survivors, no witnesses, just wreckage and silence." The communication ended. Thrackmore turned to his intelligence officer. "Show me the tactical display, all Zarathian positions in this sector." The holographic map showed Zarathian territory as a web of connected systems. Supply routes, communication, lines and defensive positions created a network that had taken centuries to build. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the sector. Human attack groups are hitting non-military targets, fuel depots, communication relays, even civilian shipping." "They are attacking civilians?" "No, sir. They are attacking infrastructure. No civilian casualties reported, but they are destroying everything that keeps our military operational." Thrackmore studied the reports flowing in. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered. They ignored military targets and focused on support systems. They avoided battles they could not win and struck targets that could not defend themselves. It was dishonorable. It was cowardly. It was working. "Sir, we are losing contact with our forward bases." The humans have severed our communication networks. Then we will use courier ships. Sir, the humans are intercepting our courier ships. They seem to know our routes before we do. Thrackmore stood silent for a moment. Somehow the humans had turned the entire Zarathian military structure against itself. Every procedure, every protocol, every standard practice had become a weakness. General, incoming transmission from the human fleet. Commander Park appeared on screen again. This time she was standing on the bridge of what appeared to be a Zarathian vessel. Hello again, General. I wanted to show you something interesting. This is the bridge of the Zarathian supply ship Endless Glory. We captured it yesterday along with its entire cargo of weapons and fuel. She gestured to her crew. Half of them appeared to be human. The other half were Zarathian. General, meet Captain Vrekton, former commander of the Endless Glory. He has agreed to assist us in understanding Zarathian military procedures. In exchange, we have guaranteed the safety of his crew and their families. Thrackmore stared at the screen. Impossible. Zarathian officers do not surrender. Captain Vrekton stepped forward. He looked tired and ashamed, but alive. General, the humans explained our situation very clearly. They showed me recordings of what happened to the crews who chose to fight. They also showed me recordings of the crews who chose to cooperate. The choice was simple. Commander Park nodded. General, we want you to understand something important. We are not your enemies. You are simply obstacles to our survival. We do not hate you. We do not want revenge. We simply want you to leave us alone. Her expression became serious. However, if you continue this war, we will end it. Not by defeating your fleets or conquering your worlds, but by making it impossible for your civilization to function. We will destroy your economy, collapse your government, and turn your own people against you. The transmission ended. Thrackmore felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, but fear of an enemy who did not think like a warrior. The humans fought like a disease, attacking the systems that kept society functioning. Sir, priority message from Hegemony Command. This time, Supreme Commander Thexrel himself appeared on screen. The leader of the Zarathian military looked exhausted. General, the situation has become critical. The humans have managed to turn 40% of our conquered species against us. They are broadcasting something they call psychological warfare to our subject planets. What kind of broadcasts? Recordings of our defeats. Analysis of our tactics that makes us look stupid. Worst of all, they are broadcasting the testimonies of Zarathian prisoners who claim to be treated better by humans than by their own command. Structure. Thrackmore closed his eyes. How many systems have we lost? 17 and rising. General, the humans are not trying to conquer our territory. They are trying to collapse our empire from within. The communication ended just as new alarms began sounding. Sir, detecting massive energy signatures. Multiple human fleets approaching from 6 vectors. The tactical display showed the impossible. Hundreds of human ships, moving in perfect coordination, surrounding Thrackmore's fleet. But these were not the primitive vessels from New Geneva, or the desperate defenders from Hadrian's Wall. These ships looked like nothing in any galactic database. Sir, the human vessels appear to be constructed from captured Zarathian technology. Combined with unknown systems, they are larger and more heavily armed than our own ships. Commander Park's voice echoed across all communication channels. General Thrackmore, this is the human battle fleet Retribution. You are surrounded and outgunned. We offer you the same choice we offered Captain Vrekton. Surrender and live, or fight and die. You have 60 seconds to decide. Thrackmore looked at his tactical display. 300 Zarathian ships against 800 human vessels. The odds were impossible. But he was Thrackmore the undefeated. He had never retreated, never surrendered, never lost a battle. All ships, battle formation. We are Zarathians. We do not surrender. The battle began immediately. And for the first time in his career, Thrackmore realized he was fighting an enemy that had been studying him for months. Every tactic he used had been anticipated. Every maneuver was countered before he completed it. The humans fought like they could read his, Sir, they know our battle plans. They are responding to our moves before we make them. Impossible. Sir, I believe they have been monitoring our communications and analyzing our tactical patterns. They know how we think. The human fleet moved with precision that made Zarathian military doctrine look primitive. Ships worked together in ways that should have been impossible. Information flowed between vessels at speeds that suggested some form of shared consciousness. Sir, we have lost 60% of the fleet. Requesting permission to retreat. Thrackmore watched his ships die one by one. The humans were not just winning. They were demonstrating complete tactical superiority. Sir, incoming transmission. Commander Park appeared on screen one final time. Behind her, Thrackmore could see the bridge of a human command ship. The crew worked with calm efficiency, like this was a routine training exercise. General, you have fought bravely. Your reputation was well earned. However, this battle is over. We are prepared to accept your surrender. Thrackmore looked at his remaining ships. Less than 30 vessels from a fleet of 300. What are your terms? You and your crews will be taken as prisoners of war. You will be treated according to Galactic Convention. In exchange, you will provide us with information about Zarathian military structure and strategy. And if we refuse? Commander Park's expression did not change. Then you will all die here, and we will learn what we need to know from the wreckage of your ships and the computers in your escape pods. Thrackmore closed his eyes. For the first time in his career, he spoke the words he had never thought possible. I surrender. 3 days later, General Thrackmore sat in a comfortable cell aboard a human prison ship, staring at a tactical analysis that would have taken Zarathian intelligence years to compile. The humans had prepared it in hours. The document detailed every weakness in Zarathian military doctrine, every flaw in their strategic thinking, every mistake they had made in the past 3 months of war. Reading it was like watching the death of an empire. The last page contained a simple mess: the new silence. The surrender came not as a dramatic final battle, but as a simple mathematical equation broadcast simultaneously to every government in known space. Director Sarah Chen, now head of the Human Strategic Command, stood before the largest gathering of galactic leaders in recorded history. The emergency session of the Galactic Council included representatives from over 300 species, many appearing for the first time in centuries. Ladies, gentlemen, beings, and artificial intelligences, she began, we are here to discuss the terms of galactic peace. The holographic display showed a complex mathematical model. Species population numbers, military capabilities, resource availability, and territorial holdings were reduced to simple equations. As you can see, continued resistance to human expansion is mathematically impossible. The Zarathian hegemony, once the galaxy's dominant military power, controls 17 systems and falling. The Synthetic Alliance is experiencing philosophical gridlock that has halted their expansion entirely. The Ethereal Collective has retreated to dimensional spaces to avoid further contact with human thoughts. Ambassador Kethra, speaking through a mechanical translation device to avoid direct mental contact, asked the question everyone was thinking. What do you want from us? Director Chen consulted her notes. 3 things. First, complete access to all galactic databases, historical records, and scientific archives. We want to learn from past mistakes. The assembled delegates exchanged glances. The request was reasonable, almost expected. Second, representation in all interspecies governing bodies, trade organizations, and diplomatic councils. We want to ensure that this kind of conflict never happens again. Again, reasonable. Most species had expected much worse. Third, formal acknowledgement of precedent. The chamber fell silent. Universal translators worked frantically to render the concept into various languages and thought patterns. Senator Torvak, speaking for the newly reformed Synthetic Alliance, asked for clarification. Define precedent in this context. Formal. Recognition that humanity's response to the Zarathian aggression represents our standard diplomatic protocol. Any future attacks on human interests will receive proportional response based on the scale and method of aggression. Director Chen gestured to the holographic display. which now showed detailed analysis of the war's progression. The Zarathian hegemony attacked 2 of our colonies with military force. We responded by destroying their empire and liberating their subject species. This response was proportional to their aggression and serves as precedent for future conflicts. Trademaster Zilkra spoke carefully. You are saying that any attack on human territory will result in the complete destruction of the attacking civilization? We are saying that any attack on human territory will result in a response calculated to prevent future attacks. The scale of our response will match the scale of the threat. Director Chen's expression remained pleasant, but her words carried implications that made even the bravest delegates uncomfortable. For example, if a species attacks a single human ship, we might respond by eliminating their military capability in that sector. If a species attacks a human colony, we might respond by restructuring their government. If a species attempts genocide against humanity— She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. We want this precedent formally acknowledged so that there can be no confusion about our intentions. We are not conquerors or aggressors. We are simply a species that responds to threats with overwhelming efficiency. The vote was unanimous, not because every species agreed with human terms, but because every species understood the alternative. Within days, the galaxy began to reorganize itself around humanity's presence. Trade routes shifted to accommodate human expansion. Diplomatic protocols were rewritten to include human representatives. Most importantly, military doctrines across dozens of species were updated to include one simple rule: do not engage human vessels under any circumstances without authorization from the highest levels of government. But the most profound change was cultural. Children of 100 species learned human history alongside their own. The story of a small, peaceful species that became the galaxy's dominant power in 3 years became required study in military academies across known space. The Ethereal Collective, emerging from their dimensional retreat after months of psychological recovery, published a research paper titled The Human Mind: A Study in Controlled Chaos. The document became the most requested file in galactic academic databases. The Synthetic Alliance, now calling itself the Cooperative Intelligence Network, began incorporating human philosophical concepts into their basic programming. The idea of individual consciousness within collective action revolutionized artificial intelligence development. Even the Zarathian military, reduced to a planetary defense force, began teaching human tactical concepts to their officer candidates, and humanity? They returned to exactly what they had been doing before the war began. Trade routes were re-established. Diplomatic missions resumed. Exploration vessels continued mapping empty systems at the edge of known space. The only difference was in how other species reacted to their presence. Human merchant ships found themselves given priority docking at every spaceport. Human diplomats discovered that their meetings were scheduled immediately upon request. Human exploration teams were offered assistance and resources by every species they encountered. It was not friendship. It was not fear. It was something much more profound: respect, backed by the absolute certainty of consequences. Director Chen sat in her office aboard the human diplomatic station orbiting Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy. Trade was up. Conflicts between other species were down. Several long-standing territorial disputes had been resolved through arbitration rather than warfare. Peace, it seemed, was more efficient than war. Her aide, a young officer named Martinez, brought her the daily intelligence summary. Ma'am, the Galactic Council has approved our request to establish human colonies in the Outer Rim. They are also asking if we would be willing to mediate a dispute between the Crystalline Confederacy and the Gas Giant Alliance. What kind of dispute? Territorial. Both sides are claiming the same star system. Director Chen smiled. Tell them we would be happy to help, but make it clear that our mediation is binding. No appeals, no second chances. Yes, ma'am. Martinez turned to leave, then paused. Ma'am, there is one other item. The Ethereal Collective is asking if we would be willing to share our educational materials with their youth programs. What kind of materials? Our children's stories, ma'am. They want to understand how we raise individuals capable of what we accomplished during the war. Director Chen thought about that for a moment. Human children's stories. Tales of David and Goliath. Of small heroes facing impossible odds. Of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when their backs were against the wall. Send them everything they ask for, she said finally. Understanding leads to cooperation. Cooperation leads to peace. After Martinez left, Director Chen turned to look out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human survey ships were discovering new worlds. Human families were building new colonies. Human children were learning about the galaxy they would inherit. A galaxy that whispered their species' name, not in hatred or anger, but in the same tone reserved for natural forces too vast to fight and too fundamental to ignore. The war was over. The peace had begun, and in the deepest archives of every civilization, scholars worked to understand how a species could become the galaxy's dominant power while remaining exactly what they had always been. The answer, when they finally found it, was simple. Humanity had not changed at all. They had simply revealed themselves. The galaxy had finally learned what it meant to share space with a species that viewed survival not as negotiable, but as a mathematical certainty. In military academies across known space, the final lesson of the human war was always the same. They are as they have always been. We were simply not qualified to see it. The universe was vast, ancient, and full of wonders, but now it was also full of humans. And that, everyone agreed, changed everything.